Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful back in the studio today with a still very messy desk. I'm really down to this tiniest spot to be able to work, but I think that is enough room for me today. And I wanted to get this video together here. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video and are inspired. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, click on subscribe and the little bell so that you get a notification when I post a new video. Say hello down in the comments too to let me know that you're new. So I've been working on a series called Gel Print Art, and I, like many of you out there, got hooked on making gel prints, but I really didn't have a plan for them other than I wanted to learn how to do collage. So that's an obvious thing to do with them, and I think that's why a lot of people make them. But I started out really by tearing off the white scraps around the edge because I was having a hard time visualizing the gel print and what I might want to do with it other than tearing it up. So with all those scraps, I started making these stripy papers. So this series kind of started with that whole idea in mind. What was I going to do? How many ideas can I come up with to use every little bit of my gel print? So there is a link down in the description for some other related videos for the entire playlist for this series, which also includes a couple of older videos that I did on gel printing, but I went ahead and included them just because I already had this playlist set up. But I've started this series a few weeks ago with Gel Print Art Episode 1. So now this is number 9. I was wrong on the last video. I said it was number 7 and it was really number 8. So this is episode 9. And we started out by making gel prints. For those who had not done that, I did put together a kit of the 2-day session that I did making gel prints. So the link for that is also down in the description, and that's available if you don't want to actually do your own gel prints. So you can do these same projects and just use the digitals. So last video, I did a video on making cards. And so since then, I have actually, I introduced in that video at the end 2 card sets that I had put in my Etsy shop. I finished up the 3 cards that I was working on the video, and I actually, oh, maybe I should get that and show you. I finished up those 3 cards, and I don't know if you could see them in the shine here, but this is, actually goes this way. This is one, you can, I guess, turn it either way, they're abstract. So this was one of the cards. This is the one I think that I put together on camera. And then the third one. And so they all ended up, because of the papers I chose, they all ended up kind of coordinating together. So I went ahead and did create a card set with those 3 designs. So this is also available in my Etsy shop. So that was what I worked on from the last video. I am working on some magnets. That was also something that I covered in the last video. So I'm putting together more of those. Hopefully those will end up in the Etsy shop. But today I wanted to do the next project that I did, which again was using up scraps. If you watched the last video, I have all these bins of scraps on my table that I had been working to create the cards. And I'm continuing with this mess because I want to just use up as much as I can. And so this next thing that I did was to create some shadow boxes. And I know there's a glare because this has glass, and I have some taken apart, but let me see if you can get in here and see this without too much of a glare. So for this, I'll show you one without the glass so that, you know, I can show you the compositions are similar. But this particular one has a gel print scrap in the very background that's sitting on top of my handmade watercolor paper. And then just a strip of a scrap from the stripy papers just little scraps that I have. And then if you can see on the key, I have some beads that I created right onto the key. There's 3 of them. The bottom one's hard to see because it's a little kind of a bronzy color. So 3 beads made out of gel print on book page, and then stitched on with some embroidery thread that I stitched the whole thing together. So this is just kind of I wanted to do some shadow boxes with some found object type things. because that's also near and dear to my heart. If you've known me and followed me for a long time, you know that I do a lot of different things, and that this whole mixed media realm really only since COVID is when I started deciding to do that. So before that, I did a lot of other things, and one of my favorite things is just junking and collecting vintage things. And so I have this collection of rusty keys that I wanted to do something with. So that's what I'm going to show you today, my idea for what I did with a bunch of different keys. So this is the panel that we create that goes in the shadow box. So you start with just a 6x6 panel, and then I painted it black with my Mars Black. And I am in love with my new large brush. Prior to that, I think this was probably the largest size brush that I had. So I was always having to paint, some larger things with this small brush. And so I love having this. This one's 1 3/4 inches. And it's just nice when you need to paint. It's a little damp, so I don't want to touch my panel with it. But when, you use a larger brush, you can just get the black paint on quickly and you're done. So that's the first step. I've prepared 4 ahead just so that I can work on the focal point in this video. So 6x6 panels, in the description, I have a running list of all the materials I've been using for this entire playlist. So it's growing, and growing. So towards the bottom, you'll find whatever current video you're watching, because I've just been adding, in order. Okay, so panel painted black with Mars Black. Then my handmade watercolor paper. I handmade some paper, and somebody did ask me if I would ever do a demo on that. My setup here for recording does not accommodate the largeness of my paper making materials, so I probably won't be doing that. But I didn't do anything different than there's a zillion videos out there of paper making with the screens. So I do it in my laundry room is why I don't have a camera set up in there. But anyway, so handmade paper, which you can also purchase on Etsy or somewhere if you don't want to make your own handmade paper, or you can use something else. You can use fabric, anything, that you want to use. But I like the kind of the organic, imperfect look of my handmade paper, the texture of it compared to the panel. So I just put a piece of that. I adhered that with some matte gel, Liquitex matte gel medium. You can use any brand. And I just put that on with my other favorite brush, which is this Princeton Catalyst size 8 filbert brush. I like this for gluing things because it's really nice and stiff and you can get air bubbles out and all that kind of thing. For this, because the paper's more fragile and I don't go over top like you do with collage, I just put the glue, the medium onto the back side carefully because it's a little fragile. And then this is one that I've prepared. I use my speedball brayer that I use for gluey things, so it's a disgusting mess, but I just use that and roll that out to get any air bubbles out because I don't want glue or anything on the top. Because I'm putting it behind glass, it's not like the panels that I did. If you watched those videos, for these panels that I did, this is 2 videos ago, would be number 7. I wanted this sealed because I don't have this. I need protection because it's not in a frame behind glass. So this paper is my handmade paper as well, but it is sealed in this case. So here I don't have to do that. So I can leave it that nice linen-y looking, non-shiny texture. Okay, so this is what I just did ahead. I'm just showing you what I did ahead. And then I get to my focal point. And so maybe I'll back up one step and show you the shadow boxes that I'm using. So I bought a whole bunch of these. These are Studio Decor. They carry this brand at Michael's, but I think I bought this on Amazon probably. I'll put a link down below. If not, I got it at Michael's and I'll put a link for that. But I ordered a bunch of these because I knew I had several keys and maybe other things that I might want to use. So I'm going to save these corners because they're going to be good for if I need to end up selling these, which I plan to do. I don't know if I'll put them right away in the Etsy shop. I might. I have to decide. But then I'll be able to use these to ship them out. So I'm just going to remove all the plastic. And then you'll need a screwdriver for this. These are really pretty tight. And I'm going to take this off and then I'll put it back on before I ship it. And so you need a little Phillips screwdriver. And I'm just going to loosen these to make it easier. Because we sort of have to deconstruct the shadow box from its original intention, because I want to add that panel inside. Okay, so I'm going to remove the back, and then I'm left with just the glass and the shadow box. So I want to put this aside. I'm going to need to prepare this a little bit for this one. The first thing that I do is, I want to clean it, make sure there's no dust, clean the glass, and then put it aside. But you can see these little nail holes from when it was manufactured. I like to take a Posca paint pen because I don't want to see any little, if you can see that, in construction you'd call those shiners. You can see where the little nail popped through, and I'm very particular, so I don't want to see those. I want them to be black. So I won't do this on camera, but I just take my Posca paint pen, black, and then just touch those up and, rub them with your finger to blend it all in, and then you won't see those. I have one that I've prepared so that you can see what I mean. So this is one that I have worked on, and you can see, if you can see, this one still shows a little bit. I need to do that one again, but I have gone and, cleaned those up so they don't stand out as much. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do to the frames for this batch. I do have another idea that will come maybe later in a different video for another way to use the shadow boxes. So shadow boxes, if you're not familiar, they're just things, when you want to put something that has depth, that you need some space here for keepsakes and that kind of thing, you need that depth. If you just had a regular picture frame, even though my key is not huge, it still sets away from the background. So I need a shadow box. They do make narrower ones, but I like this size. This is a 6 by 6 inch, and the inner depth is a little over an inch for the thickness. So you can put larger, chunkier things inside. So it comes with the little pins, because a lot of times people are putting things in that they actually can use those pins and pin them in. But we're not going to do that. So we're going to get rid of this. Then the other thing is it comes with this black foamy kind of background so that the pins would stick in. And we don't need that either, because when we want to put it into our shadow box, you can see the way a shadow box is made. You have your space, and then it steps where you put your backing in that's going to hold everything in. Otherwise, it would just flap around. So there's a piece here that's the 1 inch-ish, and then probably about a 1/4 inch or so space here. So we only have this thickness, this 1/4 inch or whatever it is, to be able to put this backing back on and be able to close these again. So we need to remove this. So it's glued on just in a few places. Some of them are more glued on than others. So you just kind of pull it away, and you do end up ruining it because there was more glue on this part, and I have to get all of this off. So this is what you're left with. Now, I have my handy jewelry little tool, but anything you have that you can kind of scrape, a metal ruler would work too. But I'm just I want to get this off up here. It's just kind of like an expanding foam kind of material. Okay, so that is cleaned off enough. So now, luckily, my panel is about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I didn't change the thickness. Now that will all fit into my, now this one I have not prepared, but you'll get the idea. So I'm gonna fit that in, and it fits flush still. So then I would just close it up and tighten my screws. So that's how it's gonna, you know, go together. So the creative part now, that was all kind of just the non-creative part of getting all the materials ready. So I'm doing 4 more. I've done these 2, and I wanted to do several more just so I can kind of show you different ideas, things I'm coming up with. Now the other 4 that I'm going to do, I haven't even thought about other than the background pieces I've prepared and chosen the keys, but I haven't done anything to the keys. This one here, I put the beads on and stitched, and I actually used the threads from the stitching to stitch it through that card piece so that you don't really, it kind of looks like it's floating there. Okay, so this one, similar, I wrapped this one in leather. This is just the leather I use. This one is 1 millimeter. I buy this in spools because I make jewelry, and this is what I use to make bracelets. So, and I also use it for bookbinding and things too. So this is 1 millimeter leather. This is from Leather Cord USA is the company, and I'm not sure if I'm buying it their wholesale or not. I may or may not be. So I'll look and see if it's just available to buy. Otherwise, you can find this type of thing on Amazon. So I will find some for you in this similar color if you're interested, and put a link down below. So I just took a piece of that leather and just wrapped it around the key, and then wrapped it around here and used that and punched a couple of holes and put it through this paper. Now you could go through all your layers through the canvas even, but I didn't. I just went through this piece and then glued everything down because I have these prepared ahead. So this is the difference that will be in the different 4 that we do. So I'm gonna set that one aside and grab my 4 pieces. Okay, so again, when I chose these, I just grabbed my larger scraps that are small, you know, things like this size. Actually, these 2 and this one, these 3 were pieces that were already cut. But I had a few squares. I don't know if you remember or if you've been watching. In the last video, I showed this box. I had cut a lot of 2-inch squares from full sheets to do a grid type art piece that I left in Utah. And the scraps from that, I had random sizes because, you know, if you've done these papers, your papers are all random sizes. So these were scraps that I had left over from doing things like that. So I didn't even change the size of these 3. And they were, in fact, I think this one I may have trimmed down a little bit, and they're similar to this one. So I thought when I was doing these, the new ones, I had this one, it was just one I randomly did, not knowing I was going to even do this video series. So it's kind of an odd, different shape. So I thought, let me do 3 that kind of coordinate together so that if you wanted to do a grouping, you could. So that was kind of what I was thinking. I kind of let the key tell me how it wants to, what paper it wants to be with, and how it's going to be arranged on the paper. So you'll see these are the 4 I have left. This is it of my rusted keys. And so I just grabbed one, and I think I took this one next, and I think I had put it on this piece. So I kind of start looking at them and try to decide now, which direction do I want the key to lay? Does it matter? If I have to trim something, I want to maybe look at my pattern and see where my center is to see if I can have it balanced in any way. This one is not so much, but you see how it's almost like the center of one of those triangle little teepee shapes. So I kind of look at all of that. It's not anything that I know if anyone else will notice, but it's kind of, I'm trying to make decisions, and so that kind of helps me. Now, this isn't totally centered either. All these doodles are just freehand, so they're not spaced evenly or anything like that. but I will try to find the center, and if it happens to be between two things, that's great. But you can see I have space on one side, and it's all the way up against that dot on the other side. So if I wasn't trying to have a triptych thing going on, I would probably trim that, you know, visually so that it's at least even visually on both sides. So I shouldn't even point that out to you, but I am, because I'm just kind of sharing with you how I think about things when I'm arranging it. Now, when I put this key on this particular one, I don't really like it this way because this color up here is dark. Same if I want this to kind of coordinate with this one, it's darker on the bottom. So when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll do it like this. So I end up with pattern on top, even though this pattern's a little bolder. This pattern's larger, but this is pulled, and they both have the similar thin lines and then a darker color on the bottom. So I would put those together that way. So I also like that the top of the key disappeared against this color, but it shows up against the green. So this one will go here. Now, as far as doing beads or anything, I have not even thought about that. I may want to turn this one this way just to be opposite of this one. So I'll make that decision kind of as I get my third one here. But that's kind of how I think as I'm doing this. And I know these don't look the same size, and they aren't. This one's actually a little bit smaller. This one is this size. So I don't know why that one ended up smaller. I must have had to trim something a little bit. Anyway, so this one, I'll have to think about what I want to do, if I want to add leather, maybe leather and beads, depending on what I end up doing with this one. So for this one, I ended up grabbing this key, which is missing. It's broken, but I still want to use it. I still like it. I've always loved rusty things, but I think that was what I decided. I think when I originally had these, I was looking at this one and thinking, finding the center, I was putting it against that so it really showed up more. But I think I changed my mind. See, I should have taken a picture of this and ended up doing this, because then I end up with 3. And they all have the darkest color on the bottom, but they all kind of look okay together. Okay, and then the next one was this one. This one was a much longer key, so I ended up needing a longer card. And I had this larger piece. I like all of these colors together. I don't mind that they are not the same size. The keys aren't the same size. So I think this one I had put this way. I just want to make sure, and then I'll tell you why I was thinking that. I mean, I do kind of like this, the contrast of that, but I really liked visually, this to me was more like the ground, the grass, the night sky kind of thing. So I'm kind of thinking of this for this one. And then this one, the last one, my last key, I really like the patina of this side, so I'm not sure which way I'm going to end up putting it. And I grabbed this paper, and these were okay with the key right on top, because even though they're busy, the key was bold enough to stand out. This one, especially on the side that I really liked, it shows up better on camera, but I felt like it was kind of getting lost in this paper. And I think it doesn't show that getting lostness up on camera here, but I really was feeling like that. And I think I want it on the rusty side, even though I like the other side. So I could go this way, because then I have the 2 purples kind of on the top. And again, these may end up all getting sold individually, but if I were to be doing an art show or hanging them in my own studio, they're going to maybe hang together as a group. So I kind of think about that. Now, I liked this one better with this on the top for some reason, and I think I do like the rusty side. But what I did grab was I was thinking it was too busy, and it's kind of similar to what I did in this one where I wanted it to, the key to stand out against something more plain. I don't know if I can sit this one here. You can kind of see it. I thought, well, if I put a piece of paper behind it, then the key will stand out more. And so this piece of paper was actually a piece of, started out I think as roll-off paper, and then I used it to clean off a gel plate. So it's, I think it's, I'm not even sure what kind of paper it is. It started out pretty thin, but it has a lot of, it's probably rice paper, but it has a lot of, could even be deli, it's not deli tissue. I don't think that would be too thin, but it could be, you never know. It has so much paint on it now that it's thicker. But this was kind of the first thing I saw in my bin that had these colors. So I thought, I don't want to think too much about it. I'm just going to grab a piece of paper. So I grabbed that and cut that down. So that way, if you do have something that doesn't show up enough, you can just grab, you know, something like if I do want to use that grungier side of my key, then it becomes more sitting on top. So I do kind of like that too, just as something a little bit different. So that's kind of where I'm at. Now, again, like I mentioned in the last video, when I want to think about what I want to do as far as decorating these keys more, that is using the other side of my brain than my talking side. So I will do this part off camera as far as making my decisions, I think, and then I'll come back on and I'll try to maybe put some together on camera, so, or at least to music. So maybe I'll leave the camera running and then we'll just do this to music or something like that, and you can watch what I'm doing. So I will be back, but this is what I have for now to work on. Oh, I guess I should mention, for these pieces, I did my usual going around. These are all thicker, so these were the ones that were done on collaged onto mixed media paper. If you haven't been following along, you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back and watch the second video. I think it's the second or third video where I actually make the striped papers and do all the pen work and all that on them. So you really need to watch those first few videos, because once we started doing the projects, they're all projects using the papers that we created in those first 3 or 4 videos. So I do go around the edges with my black Posca pen. This was on this thinner paper, so I grabbed just a piece of scrap cardstock that I had on my table, and I glued that down using some matte medium, and then also went around the edge with the Posca pen. And then all of these I've already taken out and used my Camar varnish outside, sprayed those. That just gives them a finish. They're sealed. Nothing will happen to these. They're going to be under glass anyway, but I like how it makes the colors pop. It puts a little bit of a sheen, not really shiny. I even did it on this one, but it just kind of makes the colors a little richer looking, just a little more finished. So that is my plan. So those are ready to go. Now I will just decorate up the keys, stitch them to these pieces, make a decision about whether I really want to use that or not. I just have a feeling that when I put anything on this, it's just kind of lost in that busy background. So I'm really thinking I might do that, and maybe put some busy beads on this one. So those will get stitched to those cards and then mounted onto the panels, and then the shadow box gets put back together. So that's where I'm at. We will see it in a bit. Okay, so I am back and I have my 6 panels finished. I had 2 that I had already, these 2 that I already had done. So this was my inspiration piece that I prepared before I did this series. And so I have that one. I've left it in the shadow box so that you can see what they look like in the shadow box, but then I have to put these together still. So these are just the panels, and it's easier to show you without the glare. So this is the other one that I had done where I had just woven the leather into a crisscross pattern around the top. And then I just, on this one, I think, yeah, I did poked holes through this card and then glued it down. And I realized this one worked out okay, gluing it down flat, but I could tell that I had some bulk from the leather, which made it harder to get it flat. So I came up with an idea that I'll share with you for the other ones that I used leather on. This one, I did not use leather. I used embroidery floss. And so it was, it blends in and it's flat enough that I was able to just still glue this down flat. This bead that I used on this one, let me get in here where you can see, is a handmade bead that I've used in my book bindings before. If you've been watching me, these were done with a book page that I just rolled around a skewer. Where's my little container? And then colored them with some metallic sprays, the distress sprays, and just to give them a little kind of metallic where you could still see the book page through. So I just used one of those beads. And then, so that's these two. And then this one is another square one, but I did use a spacer. So again, I did it with the leather and with some beads that I had distressed. I've used these also in my book binding. And these are just really cheap spacer beads, 4 different metal colors. And then using some distressed chemical that I use to kind of age those. You can use vinegar, also would work over time. This is a little quicker to use, but it just changes the colors and makes them look old. So I've just wrapped those around. Same thing, punched holes. To punch my holes, I use just a pad to punch through to, and then just a pin that has a nice head on it that I can puncture. Get that to make the mark, and then I just use, you can use an awl. This is a bead reamer that I have handy to get the hole the size I need to fit the leather through. And then I use just a piece of black foam core, and I cut it a little smaller than the card so that it doesn't show at all. Then that way I can kind of cut out a little channel where the leather is behind this card so that it sits flush with the little piece of foam core. So I glue this card to that. I used art glitter glue to do that, and then glued the foam to the panel. And so it gives you just that 3-dimensional look without having that black show at all, because it's going to be in a shadow box, so you're not going to see it from the side. So that's that one. And then this one I ended up doing, I went ahead and used the little panel to kind of just break it up. And then I ended up using the really grungy side of it because I also used some of those same distressed beads, and they just really looked good with that side. So I went ahead and used those, and then wrapped the leather again, punching my holes, using my foam core, and creating a little channel so that it would just sit flat. And again, so this is a more dimensional one. And then same with this one. I also used the foam core behind, and again, used the leather, did the crisscross pattern, but with this one, I had some of these iridescent beads in colors that were already in this paper. So I really like how that one turned out too. So they're all a little bit different, but they all look good together, you know, to do a grouping if I want. Overall, I'm really happy with how they turned out. This is all of my rusted keys. So I do have some other skeleton keys that aren't as rusted, that are just, you know, old, that I could use too if I want to make more. So let me know what you think down in the comments if you like this type of project. I think this is about the completion of the projects that I have already done using gel prints. I have a couple of different type of art pieces, but not with the scrap. So I'm gonna have to think on what I wanna do next. I do have a few ideas. People have asked for a few videos, demos on things like doing this beaded stitching on the vessels. And that's something that I got the idea from even doing spines of journals. So I think I want to maybe with these papers make some journal covers would be fun, and then I can do a demo on some of the stitching. The other thing I had the idea, I do have a couple of ideas for using shadow boxes and the wood cradles, and using some of these scraps in a different way for those. So I may do something like that. With the shadow box idea, I also had in the past made this shadow box out of an old book, and I did not record this. I've shown it just, I think, on my Instagram, but the background was partly done using gel prints as well. So I could kind of, if you'd think that'd be something fun, this also has found objects in it, so it'd be kind of doing a combo kind of thing. So if you'd be interested in maybe me doing a demo on creating a shadow box from an old book and then using gel prints. That might be a fun one too. So let me know what you think in the comments, what you'd like to see next. And that's it for me today. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.